Hello everyone, this is Vahita, Assistant Professor of MCA Department from Rohini College of Engineering and Technology. I am here to explain a few topics of the subject MC 4102, Object Oriented Software Engineering. Let us see about risk management from Unit 5. Tomorrow's problems are today's risk. So hence, a clear definition of a risk is a problem that could cause some loss or threaten the progress of the project, but which has not yet happened. So these potential issues might harm cost, schedule, or technical success of the project and the quality of our software device or software project team or risk management is a system of identifying, addressing, and eliminating these problems before they can damage the project. We need to differentiate the risk as potential issues from the current problems of the project. The different methods are required to address these two kinds of issues. For example, the staff storage, because we have not been able to select the people with the right technical skills, is a current problem, but the threat of our technical persons being hired away by the competition is a risk. Risk management. A software project can be concerned with a large variety of risks. In order to be adapt to the systematically identify the significant risks which might affect a software project, it is essentially to classify the risks into different classes, and the project manager can then check which risks from each class are relevant to the project. There are three main classifications of risks which can affect the software project. They are the project risk, technical risk, and business risk. Project risk. Project risk concern differ forms of budgetary, schedule, personnel, resource, and customer related problems. A vital project risk is schedule slippage. So since the software is intangible, it is very tough to monitor and control a software project. It is very tough to be identified. So for any manufacturing program, such as the manufacturing of cars, the plant executive can recognize the product taking shape. So technical risk. Technical risk concern potential method, implementation, interfacing, testing, and maintenance issue. It also consists of an ambiguous specification, incomplete specification, changing specification, technical uncertainty, and technical obsolescence. So, most technical risk appear due to the development team's insufficient knowledge about the project. Business risk. This type of risk contains the risks of building an excellent product that no one need, losing budgetary or personal commitments, etc. Other risk categories are known risks, predictable risks. So, known risks means those risks which can be uncovered after careful assessment of the project program, the business, and the technical environment in which the plan is being developed, and more reliable data sources. Example, unrealistic delivery date. Predictable risks, those risks that are hypothesized from the previous project experience. Example, past turnover. Unpredictable risk, those risks that can do occur but are extremely tough to identify in advance. Principle of risk management, the global perspective. In this, we review the bigger system description, design, and implementation. We look at the chance and the impact the risk is going to have. Take a forward looking view. Consider the threat which may appear in the future and create future plans for directing the next events. Open communication. This is to allow the free flow of the communications between the client and the team members so that they have certainty about the risk. Integrity management. So in this method, risk management is made an integral part of the project management. Continuous process. In this phase, the risks are tracked continuously throughout the risk management paradigm. So this is the risk management activities. It consists of three main activities, that is risk management, risk assessment, risk control. So risk assessment has risk identification, risk analysis, and risk prioritization. Risk control has three activities, that is risk management planning, risk monitoring, and risk resolution. Risk assessment. The objective of risk assessment is to divide the risk in the condition of their loss causing potential. For risk assessment, first every risk should be rated in two methods: the possibility of a risk coming true, denoted as R; the consequence of issues relates to the risk, denoted as S. Based on these methods, the priority of each risk can be estimated. P is equal to R into S, where P is the priority with which the risk must be controlled, R is the probability of the risk being true, and S is the severity of loss caused due to the risk becoming true. If all identified risks are set up, then the most likely and damaging risk can be controlled first, and more comprehensive risk abatement methods can be designed for those risks. Risk identification. The project organizer needs to anticipate the risk in the project as early as possible so that the impact of risk can be reduced by making effective risk management planning. A project can be of use by a large variety of risks. To identify the significant risk this might affect a project, so it is necessary to categorize into the different risk of classes. There are different types of risk which can affect a software project: technology risk, people risk. Technology risk that assume from the software or hardware technologies that are used to develop the system. Risks that are connected with the person in the development team, people risk. Organizational risk means the risks that assume from the organizational environment where the software is being developed. Tools risk that assume from the software tools and other support. Software used to create the system. Requirement risk that assume from the changes to the customer requirement and the process of managing the requirements change. Estimation risk that assume from the management estimates of the resources required to build the system. And risk analysis. During the risk analysis process, we have to consider every identified risk and make a perception of the probability and seriousness of that risk. So there is no simple way to do this. We have to completely rely on the perception and experience of the previous project and the problems that arise in them. Risk control. It is a process of managing the risk to achieve the desired outcomes. After all, the identified risks of the plan are determined. The project must be made to include the most harmful and the most likely risk. Different risks need different containment methods, and in fact, most risks need integrity on the part of the project manager in tackling the risk. There are three main methods to plan for the risk management: avoid the risk, transfer the risk, and risk reduction. Avoid the risk. This may take several ways, such as discussing with the client to change the requirements to decrease the scope of the work, giving incentives to the engineers to avoid the risk of human resources turnover, etc. Transfer the risk. This method involves getting the risky elements developed by a third party, buying insurance cover, etc. This means planning method to include the loss due to risk. For instance, if there is a risk that some key personnel might leave, new recruitment can be planned. Risk leverage. To choose between the various methods of handling risk, the project plan must consider the amount of controlling the risk and corresponding reduction of risk. For this, the risk leverage of the various risks can be estimated, and this risk leverage is a variation in risk exposure divided by the amount of reducing the risk. Risk leverage is equal to risk exposure before reduction minus risk exposure after reduction by cost of reduction. Risk planning. The risk planning method considers each of the key risks that have been identified and develop ways to maintain these risks. Risk monitoring. It's the method that your assumptions about the products, process, and business risk has not changed. Thank you.